Here we are at Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. And winter is coming. We're probably looking at some elements of Indian summer, right? So last night was nippy. Tonight should be the coldest night. And then I will move forward, right? So we are in a very interesting time. The last 100 years since Nikola Tesla discovered free electricity and wireless transmission of such that would make electric cars the way to go. But Mr. Rockefeller wanted to burn oil in the internal combustion engine and diesel in the diesel engine, whereas both of those motors were designed by people who were in farms, and they were meant to burn plant products, not oil from the ground, right? Not liquid coal. Because it took Rockefeller a good 30 years to figure out how to distill oil to a proper octane where it wouldn't blow the motor up, right? So, Lindsay, when are you planning to go to John's for the winter? Well, I called John yesterday because he left me 70 messages saying, oh, you got up to get your blah, 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 right? And so, John, I called him up. I said, John, that sounds like a good idea. We could do a lot of fun things. We could do videos together. We could work on getting you a life, and that would be great. I'd be love to do it, right? And he then said, well, I suffer more than anyone in the world. Anyone. I said, oh, really? Mm-hmm. He said, George, you don't know how much I suffer. I said, well, John, I lived with you for 18 months and watched you. So, yeah, I kind of do know how you suffer. And basically your suffering is manifested by your own actions and your own will, right? It's not coming from outside the world, and pretty much everything is such, right? So you look at areas like if John were to compare his life to the 2 point something million people that are in the Gaza Strip that are being genocide, and there's something on the order of 22,000 families that have been destroyed, meaning the average family, 8 or 9 people in it, mom, dad, grandpa, uncles, aunts, nieces, kids, right? Somewhere between 8 and 20 to a family. And using the algorithm, the IDF is just obliterating that population. Yet still, there are more than 2 million people there, right? Top of the morning, tall man. And so basically, we here in America don't have a clue. We have been totally castrated of our spiritual and intellectual fervor, right? The science world today, in the last 60 years or 100 years since Tesla in the 1890s, basically it's all been tied to, research has been tied to the corporate world. And whatever breakthroughs are broken are kept under the hat, and because it's proprietary information, like, Lockheed Martin, basically, they have taken Tesla technology and the Nazi rural technology. I mean, they have faster than light things. There's a thing called solar warden, and it's a, kind of thing that, how can I eat my breakfast and talk to you? I need a third hand. So I was listening to different folk this morning, And it's an interesting thing. Pretty much everything is on the internet, right? And ooh, mm. So the hidden hand, Hail Hydra, whatever you want to call it. The David Icke speaks that there is a cabal of a small group at the top of the pyramid that is manipulating the world and has been since like Sumer, right? And through banking where they make money through interest, because other entities around the world have had empires and businesses, and they've had, banking without interest, right? Without slavery. I'm having a nice brunch. We are heading towards very interesting times, because we are, if you think 9/11 or the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and then the Arab Spring, where Libya, and Syria, and Egypt, and Beirut were basically destroyed and thrown into deep, deep, deep chaos. Johnny Boys? Well, the bottom line about Johnny Boy is I have no money, and I can't drive 300 miles all the way to Roanoke and get all the way up his riverbed driveway and then be screamed at and thrown out, right? So can't do that. Right? So I won't do that. I mean, I'd much rather be cold in the deep green. I did it last winter. No big deal. But dealing with Johns and Rosies and John's, that the world revolves around John. John is the only creature, the only thing, oh, I love my family. He doesn't give a fuck about his family. His kids, he doesn't give a fuck. He hasn't been with them for like 15 years, They've all grown up. They're going to be in their 20s in a year or two, And he goes on about the little girl being his. No, that was, a sperm donor, his ex wanted to get laid. And so some tow truck guy did her a favor, and the byproduct was this little girl. And poor little girl is very sensitive, very psychic, very special. It has nothing to do with John Birmingham. Right? Period. Zero. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, writing in capital letters means I can read what you're putting down. Here in Dreamy Dreamland, the cadre knows that I'm kind of blind. Even with glasses, I can't really read. So I wouldn't take it as I don't run by protocols that, woke people put forth, right? And woke is, newspeak, 1984. And being woke means you're totally asleep. To be consciously intent with God's unconditional love and Jesus' unconditional forgiveness, right? So Jesus is the Son of God, right? And my good friend, George Carlin, had a great riff about religion. And that he didn't care what you believed in, whatever, dog and pony show you had, it was no big deal. He only believed in the sun God, right? And Jesus Christ is the sun God, right? Jordan Maxwell has a really good riff, a lecture about that. He is a theologian. I mean, this guy, Jordan Maxwell, is an amazing guy. Meaning, I can see trends, but, Jordan, man, that guy has it all up, and he can just, take it down. Small letters, and you are able to read it. Well, of course, I'm able to read it, but it's disconcerting, and I have to focus on it. So, whatever you write in small letters, I will ignore completely. You do not exist. You do not exist. You do not exist. Louise Carroll, you do not exist. You do not exist. Jesus says you do not exist. God says you do not exist. Within the construct of the amoral Vatican Holy Empire, that's, you do not exist. You do not exist. You do not exist. So, why don't you just write it in capital and we'll be okay with it. Thanks, Lindsay. But it's more to the point, we've had trolls in and out of this place, and I've never, get rid of them, hit the little green dots. Whenever I try to do that, I got rid of the whole channel, and no. So if a troll comes in, basically, I accept them. They just have to lay down their troll neuroses, right? They have to stop being neurotic, right? They have to stop being nihilistic, right? And because I'm sure, we've had many great brothers and sisters who were great members and still are of the cadre, right? And we've embraced them, and and they have grown, moved forward, out of the fear-oriented motif that there is, and that's what's being manufactured all around us. All these wars. I mean, we're focused on Ukraine and Israel and Palestine and the Mideast, but in Africa, there are way worse wars and way more people just dying of starvation. As people pray for peace, the more war exists, right? So prayer, used as a get out of jail card, is I'm a troll, right? And I'm a what am I? There's something that I am. A gnome. I'm a gnome, right? Within many different groups of people, communities that I exist in, I'm like Grandpa Smurf. And people know me as the old gnome. Thing. Just because is you asking me to leave. No, I don't ask you to leave. I just ask you to be part of the collective, part of the cadre, right? I just ask you to respect yourself, right? Respecting yourself is going towards a community and being truly who you are as love's co-creation, not some ideologue, right? Let's see, you are not the owner of the channel, nor the moderator, right? So it's okay, We have more interesting things to talk about, like what religion do you believe in, And what belief do you have, right? What is your belief structure, right? Ask me. You should type in capital so I can read everything as it is his channel, right? So I can see it. I mean, I can squint. Even with glasses, I have to, if it's in small print, I have to take more time to read it than if it's in capitals, right? And so it's not you're screaming at me. It's like I can read it, right? That's about it. But see, here we are wasting time and bandwidth on this. And that is religion. So I go to these 3 different churches, and they're always kind of squabbling over what does the Bible mean. Well, the Bible is just a comic book, and it, first of all, within the King James, we have the Old Testament, New Testament. Well, the Old Testament is only a third of what the Hebrew nation had. They had the Torah, the Talmud, and the Kabbalah. And we don't get to read those other 2. We don't even know what they're talking about, right? So, and see, the real problem is neither do the Jewish people, right? And Jews aren't been assimilated into Western European through the white primary culture of the Druids, right? Before anybody was in Europe, the Druids were, right? And it's what's quite interesting. If you look and investigate their theology. There's a big difference between theology and religion, right? So, do you know what the difference between, Louise, do you know what the difference between religion and theology is, right? Why don't we start with that, right? I will not write in capital letters. I will not make your wish. Who cares? I mean, that's irrelevant, So, Louise, you need to, masturbate in public, Hey, let's hear your take on the difference between belief and, come on. Jack it off good, really rub. Did you ever see that? What was that movie? Melrose? No. It's about this girl who comes from the Midwest, just like you, Louise, and goes to Hollywood, right? And she's got some skill sets, and she plays the meek ingenue, and guys kind of get, ooh, baby. And so she screws around and gets some parts in movies, and she looks like she's going to be the next thing, and she manipulates. But the whole movie is basically her dream, meaning she's asleep, and every time the dream kind of turned south, it was in Virginia. I was his moderator, but John Berman with his settings and remove modes and deleted folders. And yep, that's kind of what happened. And that's John, that's John. He's a little child, he does stuff like that. But see, the beauty of life is that no matter what happens, like John threw me out of the school 32 times. I kept saying, John, John, I owned this place for about 15 years, and it was never, I just paid the insurance, I paid the taxes. I didn't own it. The school is built on a part of the hill that's very sacred to the Cherokee, right? And I found that the first day I kind of looked at that space, Inga sent me up there. She's going, the A-frame, it's a mess. Why don't you go up there and clean it up and live in it? And Olga realized that if I did that, the people who were in the school who hadn't paid rent in like a year would move out. I would be too much of a bother for them because I kept doing things like that. I used to find flowers and I'd pick them and I would leave them on the steps to the school, and the woman just would lose her mind. And, she would throw her garbage all over the place, and I'd pick it up, put it in a garbage bag, and take it down and put it in a can. And she, don't touch my garbage, So that whole hill has a very interesting paranormal dynamic, right? It's right under a really large ley line. And people, they go up there and they party. And so the hill is like a puppy dog. It goes, oh, they want to party. Okay. They can party like until it's 1990. Oh, they want to do drugs. Okay, here's the drugs. Oh, they want to be alcoholics. Oh, okay, here's their alcoholics. And so you can fall into that motif. Don't need to be rude. Well, I'm not rude or not rude. I am just me, right? So, and I don't know if you watch this show, but it's a stream of consciousness, right? And I respond to interesting theologic and scholarly input, right? And kind of ignore any kind of egocentric. I mean, you can be, what's right? Not egocentric, but interesting. You can be an interesting person. Pretty much everyone in the cadre is an interesting person, right? And we respond with love and co-creation to that, but if you are stuck into your ego through neuroses and being narcissistic, now, pretty much if you are in this, you are not this body. This is an avatar. And, but being in here, we are kind of semi-controlled by, the chemical dynamics of the avatar, right? What we eat, what we breathe, what we see, they're all vibratorial things. And the powers that should be or shouldn't be, the hidden hand, the cabal, however you want to put it, basically understands this stuff. And so they can manipulate the population et al. Pretty well. But they never get the outcome they really want. And a good example is, the wars that are going on in the Mideast and in Ukraine, right? So they're not getting what they want, right? And so what is going to happen? So we're now going to have this presidential election, right? And I wouldn't be surprised, the Biden girl class that's running for president with a girl at the top deck and, Mr. Green Jeans as vice president, the coach, they really don't have a clue, right? Because they're puppets, right? And so there's an agenda that's not being, just like Donnie has his 2025 agenda. That's not his. He's just being used. The old crone warned you of so much foreboding. Amazing at how indirectly correct she was. Yep, well, you have to say that's true. And there are a lot of folk out there that are like the old crone, right? And they are kind of like Saint Germain. The old crone was kind of Saint Germain, and dynamics of this characteristic of spiritual, theologic life, where one's life is not about themselves. It's about the we and me, right? The first Marvel Doctor Strange movie where he meets the immortal, right? And she pushes his soul out of his body, and he's like, whoa, right? What you put in that tea, like the old crone had the 3 T's. And I've had many teachers of that level, right? No one quite as amazing. I mean, they were amazing in their own way, but the old crone was, she was like the immortal, And so, and she had many, many students. I wasn't the only one. And so I, Archie is how I got turned on to the old crone, right? I ended up in Trinity in Dublin. I was supposed to be studying, I was supposed to be part of the National Irish theater, but because I didn't speak Gaelic or really understand about Druids or any of that, I mean, I knew a lot about it, but just, from a teenage boy's attitude of studying everything. So I knew about them. I knew their connection to Christianity and Islam and Druidism. That's like Abraham. That's what's interesting. The Bible, the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament, the Torah, the Talmud, and the Kabbalah, right? They are basically a comic book, right? And none of it's, there was no Abraham, there was no David, there was no any of that, no Moses, no nothing, right? And there were characters like that, but like Moses, he was up on the mountain and he ran a cult on their belief structure was based on the moon, so above, so below, and bottom line about, back when we were cavemen, when the sun was out, we were relatively safe, right? We could see trouble coming. At night, couldn't do it. So at night, you had to hide, you had to, protect yourself, you had to worry, or you could get eaten quite easily, right? And it wasn't until fire was given to us that we could kind of, have an artificial sun, right? And if you take Christianity, deconstruct it, you can see how basically Christianity is a retread of, the Sumerian and Egyptian, because their head god was, a sun god, right? Ra, right? And Sumer, I think Helios, was their god, again, sun, right? And Horus too, right, in Egypt, right? And so Horus, you get this thing of Horus, meaning horizon, where the sun rises on the horizon, where it sets on the horizon. So there's all of these really, and like I said, if you go see Jordan Maxwell, I mean, he has it down. Me, not so much. I'm more into it, I'm more like sense things. I can see patterns, that's my skill set, right? Yes, really. And I continually suggest to people that they go watch, it's like you go to my channel, you go to my shows, and then you can put your finger and go, whoop, and it's like, a roulette wheel. Boop, 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 boop. It stops at one, you watch it. And I don't really have any, there's no way, the names, if I give anything a name, it's more a shamanic motif that, the algorithm really can't pick up, so it can't put it in little spots, in little ways, in little this and little that. It can't be pigeonholed. But you let, you say a little prayer, Tony, come around, something's lost, got to be found, and you go, whoop, 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 whoop. Haven't figured out about your tablet. Well, the bottom line, Fish, about my digital stuff, it's coming, I'm figuring, like someone gave me a new phone, and it took, I hardly could use it, but now I can use it maybe 40%, and in a couple of weeks I'll be able to use it 80%, and I'll figure it out. And by that time, my digital guru will have cleaned up my laptop. I mean, he knew what was wrong with it right away, but he's just so busy, and I'm his griot, so he's never takes any money from me. So, but I know that he's busy boy, so I'm not gonna. You gotta do it right now. No. Whenever he gets it done, it's fine. So that's why I got this other phone, because I can kind of use it, and I'm learning a new trick. So that's that's part of my life path, is that I'm always I get comfortable with doing something. And then something disrupts it, and it gives me a thing that I can learn from, right? So that's kind of how I go at it, because I don't like, life sucks. Oh, why can't it just be, everything for me? No, I just say, here's something new I can learn. was just asking. No, so everything's great. I'm putting most of my energy into, this neck of the woods got really destroyed. I'm in the kill zone of Asheville and Irwin and about 6 other towns, and just a little. The real deal is the Pokeyland areas and trade, and these aren't even towns. They're just kind of areas where people live that got destroyed, right? And it's pretty much redlining, How about them flapjacks? Yeah, how about them? So, so I've been spending most of my time helping others, and so that's why I haven't had. It's like catch as catch can, right? So I do my best to put out a show. So anyway, everything's good. Fish, I'll try. I don't have. It's the most amazing thing with this new phone, as I'm learning how to use it. It's interesting because in areas like I'm out in the woods, and you wouldn't even think there'd be a bar. Bang, there I can. So I will talk to you, and we can have a nice conversation, as we always do, mano y mano. So anybody want to get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. All small case, all one thing, right? That's my email address, right? And my PayPal is like, that's another thing I have to work out. Some people have dropped, but now I probably $22 in there. And so I have lost, I'm not really that interested in that because everything works out, I live like a millionaire on $400 a month, right? Pretty much. So it's all good. Whatever it is something I can learn from. And I know that I am not my body, right? I know that I am spirit, right? I know that I am conscious intent in love's co-creation, right? So however or whatever religion says, this is the truth, not really. Truth is a hard commodity to come by, right? Because everyone has a different opinion on what truth is. And what you have to do is, the only truthful thing is that thing that you do your best in that moment in co-creation with love. That's truth, the only truth, right? So if you die in that moment, that's great, right? And you will find, you'll experience another plane. You'll either step up into another plane or you'll be reincarnated into another avatar. And that's all good, because it's all about understanding the spiritual connection of love's co-creation, right? So anyway, that's kind of it. It's all good. People, so Johnny Boy was like lost his mind when I talked to him the other night. And he was going on about how he's suffering, blah, 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 right? Well, man, I deal with, at least, so we are feeding somewhere between 300 and 1,500 people a day, hot meals. We have different church groups that have come from all over the country that use us as their base of operation. And also we give them stuff to cook up. And they go out to these places, set up their shop, and feed the people who have no houses, no nothing, right? And they bring water to them, and then make a list of what they really need. And then next time they go out, right, we put that on their trucks, and they not only feed them, but give them chainsaws and underwear and tampons and toothbrushes and a generator, you name it. And so it's, manna from heaven, meaning we really haven't, done any kind of advertising or anything, right? But people send us tons of stuff, tractor trailers worth of stuff. And luckily we have 2 areas that we're right on the edge of real destruction. From us all the way down below Asheville, is you can't get there from here. But we have people who take stuff on 4x4s and side by sides and go through the woods. Right there are logging roads and there are camping roads, and there's ways to get from here to there that aren't county or state roads, because those are toast, right? And they're not coming back anytime soon. And that's being done on purpose to basically get rid of the population so the developers can build. And they've already bought up the last of the properties that they wanted in Pogieville. I mean, they're going to go after other people's places, but and there's all this fake news about how Asheville has all this lithium. Well, that's not fake news. It actually has probably either the largest deposit in the world or one of the largest deposits in the world. And all those woke people would have fought development of that, tooth and nail. And so all the places like Swannanoa and, all over the place, it's really, truly amazing where you see things where that stuff is. The roads are totally gone. The houses are totally gone. The river has changed in different directions. It's almost like the mud flood of the 1840s, which isn't even in our history books, right? Or the solar flare that fried the world in the 1870s, right? And because we didn't have too much electric stuff, the only thing we had that was semi-ubiquitous was telegraph wires, and they all got burned up. And the current was so intense out there in the West when they were bringing the railroads across the West. There'd be these 100-mile things of like Kansas, Wyoming, where it's just a straight line of two metal rails. That EMP hit it and bent it up like spaghetti. And there are historical references to all of this, but you kind of have to dig around, right? And you can find it. I would suggest anything paranormal or weird or historically not really advertised. I would say go to YouTube and just put in the search box, the question, right? So we're down to only one person, 4 thumbs up. It's about, when we hit 40 minutes and 40 seconds, I will say au revoir, unless we get into an interesting conversation. I have a question to you guys. So we do this thing, and the good shows are the ones that show up with you guys asking questions, and that's a good thing. But I can't find the live chat once my show goes up. I'm sure there's something I'm doing wrong that doesn't show it. So if anyone, can tell me how to make sure that the live chat shows up in my shows as they go by. But anyway, I say go look at all my shows, and I would say put the shows down on some kind of, CD-ROM would probably be the best. That's an optical thing. I mean, if we had an EMP, I don't think it would destroy the CD-ROM. But if you put it on tape or a thumb drive or hard drive, unless it's protected by a Faraday cage of sorts, you may lose whatever you put down. But our good brother, sister, Dragon, who was one of the early members of the cadre, would do that. He actually sent me thumb drives of all my shows, right? And John basically went through my stuff and took all that kind of stuff. And I didn't take it. And then he'd be Jimmy. I didn't take it. So, and that's John. Unless he wants to change, unless he really wants to get in the game, unless he wants, he constantly praise God, praise Jesus, praise God, praise Jesus, praise God, that is a false God right there. Because, like you go into a Baptist church, there are no paintings of Jesus, no crosses, no nothing, because they don't want to be have an iconology. But them having nothing is an iconology. It's one of those slippery slopes, right? So, let's see, 39:59. So But interest, like I would suggest you guys, Jordan Maxwell, right? And there are many. There's this guy. I'll get his name, but I was listening to him last night where he was describing his being. He was in the military, and then he went and started another job, and in that he kind of brushed up against, you know, solar warden, right? And so they said, "Oh, we want you to bring something down to this place," right? So he goes to the building, and to get inside, he had to go through like a metal detector. I mean, that's what it seemed to. But this device actually read everything about him, right? And so when he came out and went back to his regular military life, his CO said, that thing you went through, right? Listen, just a metal detector, it showed everything about you, and you have an IQ like 190. And so, and you have certain parts of your body that are like cleaner than most people. And we have a new assignment. It's a new part of the government. It's be something I think you might be interested in. And we want you to go to back to that same place and go through that scanner again. And then they're going to take you to a room, right? And so he does. And he meets a guy who was in his thing, but this guy now has wearing a new uniform, and he's like a colonel. He's like the CO of something. And he's talking to him, and in walks a gray, right? Big, tall gray, and starts taking a piece of equipment apart, and then, puts it back together and walks out of the room. And the guy said, "So, did that bother you?" And he goes, "Well, that's interesting, but what is that?" And he kind of starts to explain to him what it is, right? And that, Earth is everything about what humans think is it's not. It's like a total illusion. They're kept in the dark. No one really knows what's going on. And but if he wanted to, he could join this new thing called the Solar Warden, which is like a space force. And this is like 1960s. And you'll be a pilot of a spaceship that will go all over the galaxy. And it'll be, as big as like 20 football fields. It's like a floating city, right? And you'll be the pilot, right? You up for that? And so anyway, he goes on for another hour and a half telling the story. And I'll go look up his name in the next show. I'll try and write it down and tell you. But, so if you were to Google, YouTube Solar Warden, I'm sure this guy would show up. I think his first name starts with a D, right? So anyway, I was listening to that, and I heard him speak before at conferences and stuff like that. And there are a lot of people out there who have had that experience. And most people get their mind wiped. So they don't remember anything, right? But this guy, because of who and what he was, that didn't take. And so they went back and said, "Listen, those things you're having in your dreams, that's really kind of what happened to you. And we're going to give you a little 411 now that you're back being you. And this is what happened to you. And if you want, we can wipe your mind. But because your mind is so special, you might lose some of that specialness about you." And so, or you can live with this stuff, right? And you can tell people the story. No one's going to believe you. We don't care. And the more you tell that story and it gets out, when it comes to be knowledge, people will be semi-prepared. So we got every base covered. Whatever you want, we'll do, right? And so he did, right? So anyway, that's kind of what we are on the precipice of. There's going to be a lot of weird stuff going down the next 4 months. We're probably going to have martial law. We'll probably have a semi, civil war. We'll kind of have a small nuclear war where the Mideast will get wiped out and all the Mideast oil will stop flowing. So right now, oil is pretty cheap. It's like where I'm living, it's about $2.30 a gallon, right? And it'll be lucky if you can find oil, right? So, to put in your car. So I'm in this neck of the woods where everything got destroyed. The powers that should have taken, the state, the feds, everybody, they didn't show up, right? And about 2 weeks are in after the event, and we've been doing a great job. They came and said, "You're doing a great job. We're just going to let you keep doing it. You need anything?" And so, we said, "Yeah, a little of this, a little of that." And so we became one of their portals, right? So, the Army Corps of Engineers started, we started working with them to get the roads together because to wait for the state to do it, will never happen. And so it's going pretty good. And so we are, instead of being, bad FEMA, blah, 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 no. There were some people from Red Cross and some people from FEMA who were jerks. And I went and, that's my job is, I'm comic relief. My buddy is, Bob Hope, and the women run everything, right? With about a handful of guys doing a good job, right? So that's why it works, There's about 8 women who are really logistically, they've been doing this kind of stuff through our food bank for the last 20 years. And they had people in their churches who kind of got them into this. Now I'm trying to get the youngsters into it. And so anyway, it's all going good. And we've become more community than we ever have been. So that's a good thing, right? And so whatever happens, it's not going to be a big deal, because this has been our training day. We've had it down. So that's kind of where it's at. 46. Okay. When it gets to be 47, I'm jumping off. And remember, thumbs up. Let's have some thumbs up. There are going to be a bunch of you watching this later. Put some comments in the comment zone is the only thing that comes back up. So it'd be nice if more people left a comment. And you can say anything you want. Even you trolley folk can say whatever you want. You want to put it in small print so no one can see it? That's great. So, I'm all good. Okay, here we go. We're getting there, It's almost that time. So I have to get up and move and do stuff. And I need one more cup of hot coffee. So you stay well. I love you guys. I'll come back in the afternoon, probably 4 or 5 o'clock. Okay? Okay. Here we go.